I think that there's a big price to pay for being a truth teller, for being vulnerable, for being authentic.
Hi, I'm Tanta Croce, and this is Find Your Dolce, the new podcast where we explore joyful living and how to create your Dolce Vita life. I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for joining. Let's get started. Welcome to today's podcast. We have the pleasure of speaking with Sergio Navarretta. I am so excited to have him on. He is an internationally award-winning Canadian film director, producer, and storyteller. You might know him from Looking for Angelina and his most notable film recently, The Cuban. So thank you so much, Sergio, for coming on the show, for taking the time to speak with us today. I'm so excited to chat with you. It has been a while because we
Thank
first
you.
connected. I know, yeah. And you're very
Thank
welcome.
you.
And it's been a while because we first connected years ago. And it was on this little play, the most lovable play, and it was called Focomeo, which I still remember I had to learn how to say. I had no idea what it meant. It was this beautiful story in the Calabrese dialect, and we had so much laughs. And I remember you were brought in. It was our first time meeting, and you were brought in to sort of, bring the vision together and to help us actors, get the show going and to get the story out properly. And I remember thinking, wow, this guy, he knows what he's doing. Like he has some really good insight. And
Kid's got
we had,
potential.
yeah, it was, it was a long
And
time ago.
I'm still schlepping.
It was great. But I mean, maybe you could even speak to a memory of that time because it was a while ago, but it was fun. It was really good.
Well, yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I started in theater, so it was like the stakes aren't as high as in film. So I feel like in some ways it's more liberating. You can kind of express yourself creatively and try new things and I remember that some of the actors were inexperienced, so there was this kind of um sense of like just, people starting out and sometimes like I've always said this that like sometimes what you don't know gets you through the day, and that's the reality. It's like you don't have the bad habits, and those so-called limitations that sometimes can get in the way of the creative process. So I loved it. I loved just being part of the community and also connecting with audiences locally and also giving back to the Italian community because I feel that that generation, a lot of the people that were in the crowd are people that, working class that came from Italy to Canada, making massive sacrifices. So, and a night out entertainment wasn't always like a top priority. At least, I could speak for my parents. We did have a lot of fun. We did see a lot of live concerts, but I think for the most part, um, we weren't, certainly the Italian community wasn't lining up on the Friday night to see a piece of theater, and
Yeah.
certainly nothing avant-garde. So I think it was a fun uh play. It was the opportunity to make people laugh, I think, is the best part, and just kind of like I just remember everybody busting a gut and just being happy and going out in the lobby afterwards. I have fond memories of that. It was cool.
Yes, it was a great experience, and I have those same memories. And you mentioned you started off in theater, and I agree with you. Beautiful space, and there's a wonderful magic in that. But I think your story must start even before your theater days. How did you get into all of this? It's not an easy road to take, but we're
Right.
glad that you took it and you gave us your beautiful art. But how did it all begin?
Um with a damn accordion, to be honest. It's, the that was my first instrument at the age of 5, and then I studied at the Royal Conservatory of Music. Um so that took me to my teen years, and then it just wasn't cool doing vocal study, and it was just very intense and very serious, and I just wanted to have fun. And so I joined a rock and roll band, and we just kind of like did bar gigs, and that's kind of how it started for me. And then um somewhere in my early 20s, I had to find a way to survive as an artist in Canada. We all know what that's like. Especially growing up in a banker town where art is sort of a cute side hustle, or like, oh, people don't necessarily see it as a career choice, let's say. So I opened a vintage clothing store, and I'm sitting there selling jeans and whatever, and a director walked in one day and he started telling me about a movie he had made, and I was like, I thought only people in Hollywood made movies, and so it was interesting to meet somebody, a real life person that had made a movie and released it. In those days, it was like VHS. I'm dating myself, but so I put in this VHS. I see this movie. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and has an entertaining story. And I was like, wow. So I went and apprenticed for 4 years and just kind of went on this wild goose chase of trying to raise money and entice actors and sending scripts to God knows who, Harvey Keitel and others. And eventually I just set out on my own and I did a movie called Over a Small Cup of Coffee. I didn't know anything. I shot it on 35 millimeter. I put an ad in the paper and 100 people showed up, volunteer to come together to make this movie. And then in I guess it was the early 2000s, it premiered at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood. And there was people like Vincent Schiavelli there and Dom DeLuise, and so I'm looking around and just seeing people laughing or crying, and I'm like, man, this is it, this is like my life's work. And I mean, there was another moment with James Cameron that came later, but or perhaps before, I'm not sure, but yeah, there was many sort of like, I guess, synchronistic moments that brought me to where I am today. And some people ask, like, I don't get it. How did it happen? Well, it certainly didn't happen overnight. And it's a long road, and it's my life work. It's like being a priest. It's a vocation. It's not a hobby, and it's I don't see it as a career either. I see it as just an extension of who I am as a person.
I love that. And, I totally agree. I think when you have that artistry in you, it's like what you said, it's a vocation. And I've actually heard you say before, it can be a blessing and a curse. And I agree with you on that.
Did
But
I
maybe
say that?
I have heard you say that before. But I agree with it because I know like you can't let it go. So you have like no choice but to sort of work with this creative energy that you've been given, or vision, I should call it. And, maybe you can expand a little bit on what you mean or what you meant when you said that sort of line. If you still agree with it, I don't know. Maybe you don't.
I do. I do. I think that there's a big price to pay for being a truth teller, for being vulnerable, for being authentic. It's way easier to live a lie, you know, and I could have gone in 100 different ways in terms of like career choices and life choices. Um, but I chose this, and everything comes with a price. So I wouldn't say that this is any harder than being a med student and becoming a doctor, or God forbid a politician. Like it has its ups and its downs, and I think that if I look back, I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. Like it's ultimately a blessing and a gift, and it's life enriching, because I think it's about what it makes of you as a person. It's not so much about the accolades or you know what I mean, the films themselves. I think it's just about the journey.
Yeah. And I think it's like, to me, I think of it as a gift too, in the sense that you have this power to touch other people and to shape their lives with different perspectives and whatever you're giving, whether it's, music or the film or a play, they walk away with something, which is really cool too. Um,
Yes.
you have touched upon Italian heritage. You said giving back to the Italian community. I know you're obviously Italian yourself. How did that shape you? Has it shaped you in telling your stories? Do you think it's had an impact?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, it caused a lot of confusion growing up, because it sort of instilled this identity crisis that I still struggle with, because I kept being told that I wasn't Canadian, and then I go to Italy and they would say you're not a real Italian. These hurtful things that you carry with you, and so when you set out to make art, it's an expression of who you are. So if you don't know who you are, that's problematic. So it took a while to kind of accept it, and we grew up in a time where, I had to eat lunch in the bathroom because, you'd get beat up for eating eggplant sandwiches, and people would be like, "Oh, what are those worms?" Or like now being Italian is cool, and Italian restaurants are, you know, 5-star, and everyone loves Italian food. It wasn't that way growing up. So there was some kind of I guess trauma there around that. But I've always been immensely proud, and because my parents came in the 70s, you know, not in the first or second wave of immigration, they kind of like made a choice, so it's different. Whereas a lot of Italians came here, I guess, didn't have a choice after the war. They felt like, it's the only way to survive, essentially. So I always felt a strong connection to Italy through my parents, maintained the language. Italian was my first language. And then watching Italian cinema, obviously, was incredibly informative in the way that I approach movies. Even now, the movie I'm editing now, I bring that very clear sensibility to the screen. It's not like I hide it in any way, and I'm conscious of it as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I totally understand that identity crisis. I guess maybe it's definitely a little easier now because, like you said, Italian culture is more accepted. But I understand that whole thing of you're not, you're not Italian enough, you're not Canadian enough, that whole thing. So totally
Yes.
understand.
Yeah.
um, and I think that being in that Italian culture, I'm sure, just because I understand it, this probably wasn't the easiest path to take in terms of maybe how your family understood it, or, did you have to sort of unlearn a few things, as we say, that you were
Yes.
taught in order
Yeah.
to pursue this? Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I'll write a book about it one day, but like it's the immigrant mentality. It's real, and carrying the traumas of the past and all that with you. I mean, it's not like pursuing a life in the arts is not top priority. It really was about going to university, getting educated, going to law school, getting a real job. That was very much the conversation. Although my mother was very supportive because she loved music and art in general. So, I had these kind of two things happening simultaneously. But I think I guess as parents, we never want our children to suffer. Right? And I think for my dad, he just saw it as suffering. Like for him, it was about, like he had gotten an office job, a white collar job with a pension, and all the benefits, et cetera, et cetera. So for him, he put a high value on that. Um, it wasn't until, I guess, the premiere of Looking for Angelina where he was like, "I always knew he could do it, I encouraged him," and I'm like, "No, you didn't." Yeah, I mean, he did in his own way. He pushed me, definitely. But yeah, I mean, I think to their defense, I think every parent just wants a clear trajectory for their child to kind of go to university, get a great job, and live a happy, fulfilled life.
Totally understand that. And I think it's sometimes it's just like they don't know what they don't know. Right. And so, they can't help guide you. I think that's the fear too, sometimes. So I guess that must have brought up certain things for you, like, because you're taking this different path, and I'm sure obviously obstacles came up. And so how did you feel and how did you push through them? Because you're like, oh my goodness, I'm sort of already on the different path, but now I have to deal with this too. So how did you work through that?
Carefully and not very well. It was messy as hell. It so the industry in general is like just broad statement abusive in the sense that there's this kind of like it's built on fear, and it's built on, you know, who do you know and what's your last project and all that kind of stuff. And being a son of immigrants growing up in a small community, I didn't have Hollywood connections, you know what I mean? So it's like it's like I may as well have gone to Mars. Like that's how distant of a dream it was. But how I got through it was through faith, through spiritual strength, and through mindset work. So that's something I teach a lot of emerging artists is like, yeah, where you hold a camera and learning cool technology is fun, but it's not like the be all end all. It really is about um where your mind is at, and knowing to how to value your voice, um and how to value yourself as a human being. So that's I think the things that I never learned, and you're certainly not going to learn that in film school. Um as cliche as it is, I mean, there was Deepak Chopra, there was Tony Robbins, there was many others along the way that kind of nudged me along. And whenever I would hit a proverbial wall, I would have somebody to kind of guide me through that, and learning how to goal set and learning how to think like an athlete, because we're on the field of life, and it's about having the right players around you and having the right coach. I think all of that has been helpful, and not something that was cool or talked about when I was starting out. Like, you certainly didn't want to talk about, oh, I have anxiety or panic attacks, or I'm having these challenges. Now people wear it like a badge of honor, but when I was going through it, it wasn't cool at all. So um
Yeah, no,
yeah.
totally. I understand that. And I'm it takes a lot of effort and work to sort of find those pieces as you did to help you go along. I think it's wonderful that you give back and you're now helping others with that mindset. And we see it in your films. A lot of your films they talk about the human connection, the identity, the resilience. Is do you think, like you said, it's a reflection of you, right? Is that why you're sort of drawn to these stories?
Yes, I think I'm drawn to the underdog. And I think Joseph Campbell just summarized it beautifully, like the hero's journey. It's such a template for life as well. Like, if you study all the stages of the hero's journey, it's Star Wars essentially. It's like, we're all um called upon to go on this quest. And then you meet mentors along the way, and you go through the dark night of the soul, and then you come out the other side. So I think I love that as a storytelling tool, and I think a lot of people can relate to the reality of that as well.
Oh, yeah, sure. And you mentioned mentor, and that's reminding me, we need to hear about your James Cameron moment. What was that all
James
about?
Cameron moment. It's insanity is what it is. It's part I think part of this is just slight delusion. Like, you have to be a little delusional, a little crazy, using that term respectfully. And like, one day I heard that James Cameron was going to be in Chippewa Falls for a homecoming celebration, and they were gonna screen Titanic. This was, like, at the height of the frenzy, like, people were losing their minds. And so when I get there, there's, like, screaming fans, there's media everywhere, thousands of people. I just couldn't get anywhere near him. I'm like, so I felt, kind of, like, down, and I said, "Oh, man, this is not gonna happen." So I said, before we make the trek back to Toronto, which was a long drive, let me go to the local hotel there and use the bathroom, and then we'll head out. I was with a friend at the time, and I went to the bathroom, and when I came out, he was there, like, boom. He just like, I literally ran into him and Susie Amos. It was just a timing thing, right? And it's one of those moments where I felt like deep inside, I knew it was gonna happen. I just couldn't see the path to making that happen. And it seems silly and trite, looking back. It's like, okay, you meet James Cameron, but he's not gonna buy you a house or buy you a career, that's for sure. But his advice ignited something in me that I never forgot. And he said, "You want to be a director? Go pick up a camera and go shoot something." And so, that little piece of advice just set me on a path that and I've never looked back. So I'm grateful
You
to
know
him
what?
for that.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's a cool way to definitely meet your idol. And I think that that's just a very interesting story because, you had a really unique and rare moment. And I think what he said speaks to a lot of what we're told. Like, we're often told, you have it, you have the dream, just do it. And it's obviously easier said than done, but that is really the reality of it. You have to try, I think, is
Yes.
really what they're saying. You have to try. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like, I tell actors this, I tell filmmakers, I tell painters, poets, just do it, make something. It doesn't matter how big or small it is. Not everything has to be opening in 3,000 theaters in America. Like, one of the films that I had the pleasure of working on, it's like some films could be a short film. it could be something you just make for yourself. Like I journal every day. No one's ever going to read it or see it. I'm doing it for myself. And as artists, I think it's important for us to express ourselves in that way. So, there's no limits anymore. Technology has made it such that we have all the tools. Like, I'm just learning a new editing software now, like, CapCut that, my 13-year-old son taught me, and, like, he can learn this stuff inside, outside, backwards. But when I started, I mean, you needed 35 millimeter film, you needed a lab to process that film, you needed a huge crew, and now, I mean, one of my favorite movies is My Summer in Genoa with Colin Firth, and it was made with 5 people in a digital camera, and it holds up. It's fantastic, so
Wow, that's cool. And I think it goes back to what you said about the mental work. Like, interestingly enough, nowadays all the tools are there. So I
yes.
think it is more so about getting over that fear, especially because I feel like a lot of stuff is actually really public now, right? Like we're posting and, all these things are being seen. So perhaps there's some of the pressure sometimes, but I also think, it's like what you said, you're doing it for yourself or even just for a small audience. I remember listening to an actor in an interview and he said, if I'm doing a play, whether there's one person or whether there's like 1,000 people or 10,000 people, you're doing it for like that one person in the audience. It's for like that one-on-one connection. So it doesn't really matter, right? It's about the art and sort of how it transcends and the
Mm.
message and whatnot. So I can understand what you're saying, right? Um,
It's like Rick Rubin. He wrote that book on art and creativity, and made a bold statement and said, "I don't care about the audience at all. I'm making art for myself." It's a spiritual practice. It's something we do mostly when we're alone, in our most intimate moments. It's like a kind of a subconscious, uh, exploration, and so, yeah, if audiences connect to it later, fantastic, but yeah, I think the impetus for it has to be something that you're expressing.
yeah, I actually totally understand that. As a songwriter, a singer, sometimes things just come out almost because it's boiling over, right? Like you're just like, I have to create this thing. And it's like you said, it's not necessarily for anyone else. It's just like, oh, I needed to like get that out of me and to express myself in that way. So
Yes.
yes, yes, that totally makes sense.
And, like,
Um,
I don't know if you heard the story of Michael Jackson. He said, he called his crew at, like, 4 in the morning and said, "I have this impulse, we gotta go to the studio and make this happen." And everyone's like, "Michael, it's 4 in the morning. Can we just go to sleep?" And he's like, "If we don't do this now, God's gonna give it to Prince." So we have to, because it's this idea that these ideas are just floating in the ether, and I believe that as well, and once we're tuned into that frequency, it downloads, and then our job is just to show up and manifest it, so
I love that. I didn't know that he said that. And that reminds me of that's a very cool story. Thank you for sharing. There is a book that actually speaks to that. And it's all about like creativity. And it literally says like ideas are living things. And they sort of tap you on the shoulder. And if you're not ready for it, it will go on to someone else. So he wasn't wrong.
yeah,
Maybe God would have given it to Prince. Oh, that's so funny. Oh my
yeah,
God.
it's
Wow, that's really
hilarious.
cool. But going back to just how like art affects other people, I was and where the stories come from. So going back to sort of where these stories come from, they're rooted inside of you. They're things that have to come out. And one thing that I was looking at when you made the Cuban, I was looking at the story of it and just sort of like this beautiful connection of like taking care of the elderly. It's a beautiful story of a man going through dementia, and he gets help through his music and the caregiver that's helping him. And I thought, it kind of reminds me of like, and I'm going to go back to Italian culture on this, like basically taking care of our elders, right? And it's not just an Italian culture. I mean, this is also
Many.
any culture, exactly, many
Yeah.
cultures. But it's just that idea of continuing sort of that story, that community, and taking care of each other. And I'm glad that your story shows that because I feel like that is sometimes a little bit lost, right? But there's so
Yes.
much there that we need to sort of come back to, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's, sometimes you wish you had the mentor, the 80-year-old artist who can look back and share the wisdom, and of course now we have social media and we have all these platforms, so the information is there, but I think I think we failed as a society in North America because we have everyone in the household working, everybody's busy, there's everyone's running around. Like when you go to Europe, there's this sense of like everything's been built and it's okay to go to the local square and have an espresso and listen to the elders share stories. I think that's life enriching and it saves us from a lot of headaches that we're going to have to endure. And I think ultimately if we were able to if they're able to impart those stories, it just makes our life better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And I think too, it's like different versions of success, right? When you talk about success here, we run around, I think, because we're chasing this like big sort of objective. And, if you go to Europe, of course, there are certain parts that they obviously have maybe similar things, but they go about it a different way. So I
Yes.
think it's like, to them, taking that time, taking that pause, that's part of their success. And I
Mm.
think that, you know, sometimes we have to recalibrate and remember like what's most important. And actually, I think in our case, we're very lucky because we have that other worldview, right? Like we have that experience within our culture that sort of gives us that. So I'm grateful
Yes.
for it. I'm sure you are too.
I am so grateful. And I think as a society too, a lot of this is commercially driven, but the government, the banks, society in general, they sort of spun this narrative that we have to have the big home, the mortgage, all the things, the 2.5 cars and the white picket fence. And that's the only way to be. And I think we've all bought into that at a certain level. um, but I've had the fortune of meeting people in their life that are completely free-spirited, and it's like, wow, that is what we should all be aspiring to because, I mean, our disconnection to nature, our obsession with things, I think that's taken us away from our essence of who we are, and I think if we really knew our power and what we were capable of doing, if we had the time to reflect on it, I think the world would be a much better place.
Yeah. And, I always talk about like on this podcast, it's all about finding your Dolce. And
Mm.
there's different versions of that for different people. You just discussed some of them. But I guess maybe you can even tell us what would you define success today? And how does that compare to your definition in the beginning of your career?
Yeah, so I was chasing a North Star that wasn't there, like, this idea that, like, I had to quote unquote "make it," and, there was somebody that I respected who said to me, "There's no such thing as making it. It's really about, like, a lifetime, a body of work, and it's just like stepping stones, like, you know what I mean? Like, one film is another stepping stone to another project, to whatever, so it's that, but for me, success is living fully, laughing a lot, experiencing life, and not having getting to the end and not having regrets. Like it's cliche. Everyone says, you don't want to die with the music in you. You want to get it all out before it's too late. I always have this, always felt this sense of urgency and being hyper aware of my mortality. And it's just like clipping along, at such a fast pace. So I think for me, that's how I define success is really savoring the moments and really valuing time. I'm at the point now where I'm gonna probably get a rotary or a flip phone and put all the technology aside and maybe check it once a day, and then, reclaim a big part of my life. And there's so many more important things to me than social media, and I want to continue to experience those things fully.
Yes, yeah, 100%. And, I imagine you hope that your audience sort of takes some of this away from, when you're putting things into your film, different ideas. I know that these things are coming through, it's a part of you. What do you hope your audience takes away from your films, from experiencing a part of you?
My hope is that they're life enriching, even if it's for the 2 hours they're in the theater, or God forbid, laying on their couch or on their tablet watching the movie. You know what I mean? Like, I just hope that they just that they're moved emotionally. I feel like sometimes, like with this movie I'm editing now, it breaks me open in some ways. Like it's like that there's that vulnerability, that heart thing that sometimes in this society in North America we just forget. We forget to connect with the beauty of the world and the sense of gratitude and fulfillment. So it's all those things that I hope that people watch the movie and get it, even if it's temporary. But the hope is that it resonates subconsciously and yeah.
You give them a little bit of Dolce, as I
Yeah, a
call
little
it,
bit of
you know? A
Dolce.
little bit of
Yeah,
Dolce.
yeah.
And
That's right.
you hope it stays with them, but even if it's just for that moment, it's good,
Yeah.
right? It's a good thing. It's
Like
a
a cornetto or like a,
yeah.
a beautiful, Italian pastry. It comes, it goes. It's fleeting, but when you're in it, it's just so fantastic.
But the feeling lasts. That's what I always say. So
Yeah,
even if
true.
the moment has to go away, the feeling will last, and you can come back to that, right?
Over and over again.
Over and
Yeah,
over
it's
again.
true.
Well, I mean, you kind of mentioned a little bit about vulnerabilities and obstacles. I'm sure that you've had your fair share. Was there
No.
any
It was it was a cakewalk. It was all easy. Easy peasy.
um, how have those obstacles shaped you? Like they must have changed you in ways that, you look at things differently, you approach things differently now. So is there anything in particular that you can really speak to?
Sharpening my intuition and being discerning about what's right, what's wrong, and people I wanna work with, people I don't, projects I wanna engage in, others that I don't. I think at the beginning, I mean, Steve Rifkin, who's one of my early mentors, and like he edited Pirates of the Caribbean and Avatars and is a fantastic editor. He said to me once, you can't be picky, you just got to do anything. Like whether it's a commercial, short film, documentary, don't be arrogant, just do whatever work comes your way. Um I think that's true when you're starting out. You just want to get your feet wet and be exposed to as much of it as you can. But now at this stage in my life, I just I think time is our most valuable asset, and so I think that discernment is my main. I can look at a situation and I have a gut feeling and I just trust it, right or wrong.
That's good. And that takes time. That takes time
Yeah.
to come to and experience, right? It's the wisdom you have acquired. So that's nice to hear that you have that. It's like your own little magic, right? Um
Yeah.
and you are a very I would say like you have a lot of great insight. You maintain positivity. I know you said like along the way you sort of had to find it in different ways. And I think is there anything that you like any particular thing that you do, like when something doesn't go as planned, what's your like go to? Like what is there something you do when you're like, okay, I have to work through this now?
I drink. No, I don't. No, I don't. What do? I lean on my faith. I lean on the idea that that we're all being guided and that everything is happening for a reason. Letting go. Like for a long time, I was taught that, I have to be the master of my own destiny and drive it and all that. And now I just realize, like, at least in 2026, my mantra is stop, look, and listen. The clues are there, the path is there, and we may not like the timing, we may not like the way it sort of manifests. It may manifest in a way that we're not expecting, but trust the process. And yeah, without faith, we're lost. As artists, especially, like if you don't have a faith in a higher being, or if there's no acknowledgement that we're part of a bigger energy, that we were created out of something, then none of this makes sense.
I could agree with that. I think too, because sometimes you don't even know where things are coming from, and I say this in terms of, like, inspiration or I call it magic, and there's this magic and you're like, "Okay, this is bigger than me," right? So you kind of I think it sort of naturally comes in the sense that or you would hope it does anyway, in the sense that there's, like, this other power that you're working with. So that's pretty cool that you acknowledge that as well. And I think there's obviously different stages for different people. I love hearing right now where you're at. And I know though that, there's people out there that are like, okay, I don't know if I can keep going, right? Like maybe they're on the brink of that yes or no decision to keep going. And, there's that famous saying, like, right before you quit, that's when you're going to make it, right? So
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
I don't know. What advice could you give maybe to someone who's feeling that right now? Like they just don't know.
Get clear on what the goal is. You know what I mean? If you're doing it for fame or validation from other people, forget it. Like that is a road to nowhere. You know, like in the sense, like using music as an example. Music is such a incredible thing. I mean, it's curing people of Alzheimer's. Like people that have debilitating Alzheimer's suddenly come to life again through the power of music. That tells you something. And we're only now just starting to begin to understand the power of that. But you're doing it for yourself. Like if you know what I mean? Like if you're singing and there's nobody around, like that's as fulfilling as anything, being in front of 10,000 people, which I've done once in my life, and I'll never forget that. And it's like it's a rush. But if you get addicted to the rush, you're kind of it's like you're off the rails. Like it really is about you and your relationship with the creative process and the thing that you're making. So my advice is to keep doing the thing regardless of the outcome, and you just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And I've been told multiple times that non-validating comments like your work is whatever, not interesting, or it sucks, or it's amateur, whatever the thing is, like, from that asshole from the New York Times, who never saw the movie and then wrote a review about it. That those are the things that you're just like, I'm not making it for him. So that, I think that's the thing, is like really being staying in your lane and really focusing on what the goal is.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great advice. And, I think you're 100% right because you know what? You're giving away that power, that beautiful happiness and joy that your gift gives to you if you're waiting on others, right? To like validate it for you or
Validate.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great that you pointed that out. Thank you. Well, today at this point in your career, what are you personally dreaming about creatively? Like what do you hope to maybe work on next? I know you're working on a current film right now. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm dreaming about beaches and palm trees. That's what I'm dreaming about. And freedom, complete and utter freedom. We're in the kind of like a tyrannical world right now that is being kind of overrun by maniacs. So I think that I'm dreaming of a moment in time where there's open and clear communication between people, whether they agree or not politically, whether they agree or not spiritually. I grew up in the 80s where nobody cared. Boy George wore makeup and, dressed the way he did, or Michael Jackson went through all those, different phases of his life, and there was less judgment. There was kind of a sense of live and let live. Um so that's what I'm dreaming of, and also just working with great collaborators, whether it's the investors that back the film, the crew, the actors. That I'm really pushing for alignment on all fronts. And I think with this film I'm working on now, it's called What We Have Left. It took a long time. Like the script was written over 10 years ago, and a lot of times this is just about timing, and there was that window of opportunity to just go shoot it. I think that for the first time ever there was huge alignment in terms of the message of the film, our personal beliefs, values, and getting super clear about who the audience is, and not concerning ourselves with the others. It's just like just being laser focused. So yeah, I'm excited. It was a thrill to shoot. It's the film is called What We Have Left, and it's about a group of ex-hippies that reunite after 50 years of being apart. And when one of the hippies dies before the reunion, her daughter shows up in her place. So it's this clash of cultures, clash of generations. It's very touching, very moving, but also very funny. And I'm just blessed to have this incredible casting cast involved and ensemble cast, and the crew was phenomenal. And we shot it in Northern Ontario, so the landscapes are just epic. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
That's so cool. I love how you mentioned that the script was written 10 years ago. I think that is an important point to focus on because, like you said,
Yeah.
things came into alignment, right? So I think that's
Yeah.
another thing. Sometimes we're like, oh, that's an old project. It's done. Like, put it away in the box. And meanwhile, you're like, no, it doesn't always have to happen right away, and sometimes just like you said, the timing just has to be right and don't give up on that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the anxiousness, and I still do it. I want things to be done quickly, efficiently, like, I want everything now, that impatience causes a lot of stress unnecessarily because a lot of my dream projects have come true. It was just about it, they never happened when I thought they would. It's just it's on their own timeline, so, yeah.
It's definitely an important thing for all of us to hear because I think we all feel like that, right? You're like, I want this to happen now. So, you got to just, like you said, let go and let God, right?
Yeah,
As they say.
exactly.
Well, I have to close off with my famous question that I ask all my guests. What is your dolce, your daily dolce, I call it. So, like, is there something that you do every day or almost every day that gives you dolce, even if for, a couple moments that kind of carries you through?
Morning journaling, even if it's, not and here I go, it's like I'm hard on myself, like, it's probably not the most eloquent or thought out. It's just the act of sitting at a desk with pen and paper helps me frame my day properly. So that's my dolce, and I do it wherever I am, whether I'm in Italy or Florida or Dominican Republic or wherever I am in the world. I always bring my journal, and that's like the first thing I do. Um, and that's for me. That's like yeah, it's an important moment of my day.
You know what? As someone who also journals, I totally get it. Like that's no small thing. And like you said, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. It's your
Yeah.
own thing in the way that you find your dolce. So I love that. I love to hear that. Well, thank you so much, Sergio. This was such a pleasure. I love
Thank you,
to
Daniela.
reconnect. Yes. And
Yeah, and I'm glad that you pursued a life in the arts. That's
thank
like
you.
very important.
Yes. Thank you again.
Thank
And good
you.
luck with all your future projects.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.